The new endgame content is very difficult, making Mavuika extremely valuable now. She can be played both as a sub DPS or a main DPS, and I'll be covering everything here. First, I will cover her main DPS teams in the first half of the video, and then I will cover her sub DPS teams with everyone she can be played with. So let's begin with her main DPS teams. Mavuika has just one limitation that restricts her teams, which is the fact that you need to play her with other Natlan characters, or else she won't be able to regenerate her burst, which is a big part of her kit. The other way is to do normal attacks. So especially when you are playing main DPS Mavuika, you need at least one Natlan character, as her normal attacks aren't the best, which is the biggest limitation if you want to play her as a main DPS. You have more options than last time when she was out. Now you have more 4-star options. You have Aoife now and Yansan. Yansan is just great. She's just an amazing character, and especially for Mavuika, as now you have another 4-star that she can be played with. And then you have Auroron for Overload. And with the 5 stars, you have Xilonen and Citlali. If you don't have any of these characters built, then I would recommend using her as a sub DPS with a normal attack carry main DPS. She'll do just fine. She may not be able to burst every rotation, but other rotation she might. So for her main DPS teams, I think it's more important to consider the availability of the Natlan characters you have. So I'll take that into consideration when I'm talking about her main DPS teams. So let's start with her best teams, which are her melt teams. Her best team is Mavuika, Xilonen, Citlali, and Bennett. Yansan can replace Xilonen if you are at higher cons. It depends on your vertical investment. If you have more investment on Xilonen, then you can definitely go for Xilonen. If you have more cons, pretty sure Yansan at C6 can be better than Xilonen. So if you have high cons, which you probably don't because she is quite new, then you can definitely just replace Xilonen. But at the same time, you may just not have Xilonen. So you have some flexibility. And as for Bennett, if you don't have Ben available, you can go with any flex character. Remember, this team is a melt team which uses Citlali as a cryo applicator for Mavuika to melt on her burst. So use characters that don't mess that up. So I could even put Furina, maybe Zhongli, I can use Sucrose, Kazuha. You have a lot of options as your flex. You can see this here. I tried with a lot of characters. Literally every one of them was able to easily clear the abyss, so it really doesn't matter. But to maximize the damage, you will need to mess around with the team rotations. Now, what if you only had Citlali? Well, in that case, it doesn't really change a lot because Xilonen or Yansan, even though they are really just supports like Bennett, they aren't enabling any special reaction for Mavuika. So now, instead of 1 slot for flex, where Bennett would be, you now have 2 slots for flex. Like always, Bennett is the best support to be used here, but now with Yansan, we have more flexibility. If you don't have either, you can cycle through the list of flex characters like your anima support or any other buff like Furina, Mona, Zhongli, or use sub DPSs like Navia, Sincho, or Yelan can also be used here. Just make sure you implement some normal attacks if you are using Sincho or Yelan into your playstyle. You can also use Albedo, Chiori, or even use other cryo characters and you get that sweet cryo resonance. And you'll also be able to do more melts. But just a disclaimer, if you do use someone like Furina and Citlali, then you might shatter as Mavuika uses a claymore which does not melt and you might lose some damage there, so be careful about that. Now, what if you had no Citlali? Well, if you have Xilonen, Yansan, or even Kachina, you can again just try to use Bennett as your 4th slot, and then you need to find a replacement for Citlali. This can be Rosaria, who has crit rate and good cryo application, or it can be Charlotte, who has access to Thrilling Tales. There is Diona, or any other cryo character. There is Ganyu. You just need some cryo application. Even Citlali herself cannot melt every single charge stack that Mavuika does, so you are bound to lose out on some melts, and these other cryo characters also, they will lose out on some melts, but the most important thing you want from them is the first burst hit. That needs to melt. If you can get that, then you're good to go. So again, you have a huge variety of flexes. Use them in the places where you can use a flex, and that should be your melt. That is going to be her best team. But there are other teams which are not bad. They're all amazing because Mavuika is just an amazing character. So basically, you can ditch Cryo altogether, and then you basically now have 3 flex spots. You can go for Mono Pyro, an Overload team, a Vaporize team, a Double Geo, a Burning team. You have many teams. I'll quickly go over them with the flex characters you could use with them and some variations that I've tried. So basically, depending on the characters you use, you make those team archetypes. First, you have Pure Vaporize. Any Nathan character can work here, and then you will need a Hydro character. Furina is amazing for this. Then you can go for Yelan or Sincho, they're all great. And then I guess you can go for Kokomi or Ayato. And then your 4th slot can be a flex. You can of course just use 2 Hydro characters, or use 2 Nathan characters. You can use Shilonen and Yansan and then Furina. If you're not doing that, then in your flex slot you can use the flex characters that I've mentioned. And remember here, if you are using Furina, you need to have a healer. So any 2 of the characters, one of them has to be a healer for Furina. Next up are Overload teams that are way better now because we now have Chevreuse. If you don't have Chevreuse, it's a little difficult to get to that level, but if you do and have constellations, it's really good. If you don't have Chevreuse though, then you can try to just put good supports, Fischl, maybe Xiangling, Bennett, so you have really strong characters to make up for that damage. Chevreuse definitely made it a lot better. Another team like Mavuika, Bennett, Chevreuse, Auroron works pretty good. If you don't have Auroron, you can use Yansan, but there's pretty much no electro application, so you may have to remove Bennett and use someone else, maybe Fischl or Miko. If you have Auroron, you can still replace Bennett with other characters such as Xiangling with enough ER, or even Thoma, especially if you have his C6. Ideally, you want to have 2 Pyro characters and 2 Electro characters because you need constant electro application. So that's why I said if you don't have Auroron, you might need another electro character to help you with that electro application. Basically, off-field electro application at all times. There is Mono Pyro, where you have Mavuika with Xiangling and then have Bennett. And your last character has to be Nathan character, either Shilonen or Yansan, or even the Pyro Traveler, or I guess even Kachina. In the same Mono Pyro team, if you replace one character with a Dendro character, well, then you have a burning team. Emily is best for burning. She is made for that team comp. Whenever you're making a burning team, if you have Emily, you're gonna be using Emily. So as a possible Xiangling replacer, she has a lot of options with a lot of main DPSs, which I absolutely love seeing, which is why Furina is one of my favorite characters. Most of the places where Mavuika would be used are places where Xiangling would be used, as they both share a similar role of being Pyro Applicator Sub DPS characters. So let's go through every DPS that she is viable with. Let's start with Kinich. Mavuika and Kinich work really well. With Kinich, you really don't have a lot of choices. Yansan and Bennett are like really good for Kinich. So your team is already kind of fixed. You have Kinich, Mavuika, and then Bennett or Yansan. And then your next character is basically a flex. You have Emily, there is Citlali, Furina, Auroron. Yeah, it just becomes the same team, and then your 4th slot has a lot of flex characters that you can pick from. Kind of restrictive, but that's just how Kinich is. Next with Chasca, Mavuika with Chasca will basically just replace Xiangling, but makes it easier as you don't need energy now. And don't forget that Mavuika also buffs the main character. So you could run Chasca, Mavuika, Bennett, then a flex character like Furina, Citlali, Yansan being one of her best teams. Or you could just make any other Chasca team while making sure you use the other elements. Bennett is quite good for Chasca. Your last character, make sure it's either Cryo or Hydro so you can melt with the Pyro bullets. Next is Mualani. Mavuika's Pyro application is perfect for her. Your other 2 characters again just need to be buffers for Mualani. That's all she really needs. Anima buffers with Kazuha or Sucrose being the best, or buffers like Furina, Mona, Zhongli, Xilonen, or sub DPSs, or even Hydro characters like Yelan or Sinjo, because you also get the Hydro resonance from Mualani. Even Dendro characters like Emily can be used here for burning reactions for consistent Vaporises. For example, using her with Furina will require a Dendro character for consistent vapes. Clorinde, Yoimiya, Keqing, Varesa, or Cyno can work. You can build overload teams. That's basically what you want to be doing when using them with Mavuika. Both Mavuika and the electric carries work well with Bennett, so having Bennett would be great, but instead, usually, it's better to run 2 electric characters for some, and then Chevreuse. You have the electric carry, Mavuika, Chevreuse, and now another electric character. For example, someone like Fischl. So you have off-field electro applied and she has great damage as well. So usually you want to have another electric character. Without Chevreuse, overload teams, in my opinion, don't feel too good. So I personally would only use them if I had Chevreuse. And as for the other electric character, you can use Fischl, Auroron, Yoimiya. As a sub DPS, there is Kuki, there is Kudosara, or Lisa. But as they are electric carries, they also work great in Dendro teams. Now here you won't be having pure aggravate teams, as the Pyro will definitely enable burning, but you can still do aggravates. Mavuika's damage is, just nice to have here, so you can just have her as a flex doing some Pyro damage from above. With Raiden, due to how Raiden works, there is anti-synergy between them, as Mavuika requires 0 energy, so Raiden deals less damage. That can be compensated by Mavuika's personal damage. She does fine, I guess. For Hu Tao and Diluc, having another Pyro character will 100% disrupt their own Pyro application, so you kinda need to have 2 Hydro characters to apply enough Hydro for both of them. So Sinjo and Yelan is realistically the only place where you can use Mavuika if you want to have consistent waves. You can try to just ditch the double Hydro and go for more offensive options. You will definitely lose out on more reaction damage because you have Mavuika constantly applying Pyro, and you will 100% miss out on a lot of vapes. But if your sub DPSs or whatever character you are putting here, support, is giving you enough damage to compensate for that, then it's worth a try. Similarly for Yoimiya, when you have Mavuika constantly applying Pyro, it's very difficult to vaporize or melt. It's already very difficult for Yoimiya, being overshadowed by Arlecchino, Mavuika, and I guess even Hu Tao. Or just play an overload team just like the Electro carries with Chevreuse. Now leaving only one slot for Electro. This should be a good Electro applicator like Fischl or Yoimiya or even Auroron. With Arlecchino, it's a little bit different. Her non-reaction teams are amazing. She doesn't require reactions as much as someone like Hu Tao or Mavuika. So I find it way better to use Arlecchino with Mavuika and run like a double Geo or just a team with supports with no reaction in mind. Just supports and sub DPSs. So you could go with Arlecchino, Mavuika, Bennett, and then you have a flex spot for animal supports or Zhongli, because well, giving Arlecchino a shield is always helpful, and the shred resistance is for the entire Pyro element. Bennett is the best for both Mavuika and Arlecchino, so he has a lot of value in that team. So personally, I would always use Bennett there, but you can just mess around having Pyro supports. You have quite a few options. Navia teams do use Shungling a lot. You can easily slot in Mavuika where you had Shungling. You can use a double Geo team, double Pyro team. Bennett is always gonna find his way in, and then you can move on to a 4th character. Try to use another Geo character with Navia so she can obtain her shards. Playing her with another Geo character feels so much better, so I highly recommend another Geo character in the team. This can be Chiori, Zhongli, Albedo, Xilonen. For the other elements, you can use Electro, Hydro, Cryo. You have many options. A lot of flex characters, because for Navia, you basically just want a lot of elemental application, so she gets shards and then she does big damage. You can build a team with Furina. She does quite well with Navia, but again, you need to have a healer if you do use Furina. You can have Fischl, Rosaria, Kaya, Sincho, Yelan, and more. Itto is similar, but Itto wants more Geo characters. Like, do not run Itto alone when you're playing Itto. Itto alone as a Geo character does not work. Either have Xilonen, Chiori, or other Geo characters, or have multiple Geo characters with Itto and just have Mavuika's there as a flex, just providing as much damage as she can. Wriothesley is one that benefits from Mavuika as well. She just hits really hard, and because Wriothesley is a cryo character, you can melt with Mavuika. Her burst is incredibly powerful. So a powerful reaction like Melt with Wriothesley just being there, being a cryo character, makes the whole team just be really strong. She definitely does more damage than Wriothesley. But hey, if you want to play Wriothesley with Mavuika, you definitely can. Mavuika with Neuvillette will have your Mavuika Vaporize instead of Neuvillette because Mavuika's Pyro application isn't fast enough for Neuvillette. They both are insane, so it doesn't really matter. You can have anything here and your team will do great. Use Furina together with Neuvillette or have Kazuha or other buffs. Karai characters will also just be great here. You have Shilonen, Zhongli, you have many options. Lyney, as you know, wants you to use more Pyro characters in the team, and Xiangling is one that you use a lot with him, which means you can use Mavuika as well. Here, you should try to have characters that enable a Pyro aura on the enemy, so don't use characters that apply a lot of other elements. So Geo and Anemo are prioritized here. So now you have 3 characters. You have Lyney, Bennett, and Mavuika. Your last character, you should probably try to get a Geo or Anemo character, so Zhongli, Shilonen, or Anemo characters like Kazuha, Venti, and others. You may also use other elemental characters that don't apply a lot of their own element. There are reaction teams where you have Lyney vaporizing or melting. Now Lyney himself applies a lot of Pyro, and having Mavuika applying a lot of Pyro will definitely mean that someone will be melting, maybe not Lyney. So in that case, probably having someone like Furina, where Furina's personal damage vaporizing isn't so bad. And the thing with Lyney is, if you don't vaporize Lyney, he still does a lot of damage. If they have a Pyro aura, your Lyney will do damage. And so having reaction based teams where you're not doing consistent vaporizes or even melts, unlike Hu Tao or I guess Yoimiya, you are not losing out on a lot of damage. And so if you're running for suboptimal teams where Lyney isn't doing reactions, but you have a Mavuika to maybe do a big burst melt hit, well, in that case, Lyney and Mavuika, even though you're not melting or vaporizing with Lyney every shot, can be very good. Now for Ganyu, I love playing Mavuika with Ganyu. I'm never going back to Xiangling. Ganyu with Xiangling always felt a little off. Maybe it's a skill issue, but with Mavuika, you can get that Pyro application that's just perfect for Ganyu. And the burst is great. The team just feels complete. Running Ganyu, Mavuika, and then Ganyu's best support, Bennett and Zhongli, makes one of my favorite teams. Of course, you can replace Bennett and Zhongli with other characters. Maybe keep Bennett because you get the Pyro resonance and the heals, and then replace Zhongli for other flex characters. Maybe Shenhe, maybe an animal support, maybe other Geo characters like Shilonen or Dendro for more consistent melts. Now, Ayato and Childe. With Ayato and Childe, you can use Mavuika to just vaporize from her side, basically the same as Xiangling, and then your other 2 characters can just be supports. Bennett, and then an Anemo, Swirl, or Citlali, your flexes, you know the drill, will work great. I tried a lot of teams with Childe. I don't have Ayato, but it should be similar. You can basically run a double carry team with Ayato and Mavuika, maybe do charge attacks with Mavuika or switch back to Ayato, and if Childe isn't ready, just switch to Mavuika. Xiangling can be a bit difficult to build because she needs crit rate, crit damage, energy recharge, attack percent. It can be very difficult to, get Xiangling built properly, whereas Mavuika, she's just, a DPS. She has no energy requirements. It just makes it a lot easier to get that Pyro application in your teams. So it makes sense if you want to use, Mavuika. Now for Ayaka, Ayaka's burst and Mavuika together, this combination here works amazing. Ayaka's burst is really strong, and then you also have Mavuika's burst. You can melt with Mavuika's burst. It can be really incredible. It can be a bit difficult to get the team rotations down. Usually you will have Mavuika melting instead, especially on the burst when you charge attack, which is probably what you want. Next is Alhaitham and Dignary. With Alhaitham and Dignary, you can have your traditional teams, like you can have an aggravate team or something, and just have Mavuika in the side. They aren't like Kinich. Kinich does benefit from burning. Alhaitham and Dignary don't have a talent that says burning helps them in a way, so she's basically just a flex character supplying you with damage. Now for Wanderer and Xiao, you normally don't use Xiangling together and usually just want other supports. Here, there isn't anything special. Mavuika is just there as a sub DPS because she does so much damage. She does it quite well. There are no reactions that Wanderer or Xiao are gonna be doing. There are animal characters, unlike Chasca, where Chasca herself takes the Pyro bullets and melts them. With Xiao, you're gonna have Xian Yun, you're gonna have other buffs. We want Xiao's personal damage to be higher, so you're gonna have Furina and characters like that. Similarly with Wanderer, you just want supports, you want shields, especially for Wanderer, because Wanderer is quite weak and he also needs Feruzan, so you already have 3 spots done and you'd rather have another support. Not the best, but Mavuika can find her place anywhere. And that's why you don't use Xiangling with Wanderer. If you have Wanderer, then you have Feruzan, and then for Xiangling, you need Bennett, but now you have no shield. So now your Wanderer is just not that good to play around with. Probably better to have a shield. Now Burgeon makes sense because Mavuika's Pyro application is very good, and unlike Xiangling where you need your burst, so you need a lot of energy, and then you have to add Bennett, and Bennett doesn't do a lot for Burgeon. For Mavuika, you don't need to worry about all of that because you just use her skill and you're there. And with Mavuika, you can also burst and you will have Hydro, which means your burst will vaporize and do a lot of damage. So even if Mavuika doesn't, do very good in Burgeon, her burst is definitely gonna make it up. Be careful because Burgeon does a lot of damage, so don't forget to have a shield. Your archetype will basically be Hydro, Dendro, Mavuika, and then a flex. Somewhere you need to have a shield, don't forget that, or heals. Just have good heals or shields, and then you have your Burgeon team ready. And I think I've gone through all of them now. That was a lot. I went through a lot of these teams, testing, a lot of experimenting, so I hope this helped, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.